Hey, can everyone online hear us okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Good afternoon, committee members and other parties of interest. This is the evaluation committee meeting for RFP-25-00378, construction manager at risk for CDBG/DR single family housing repair and replacement program. My name is Ethan Kersey and I'm the buyer assigned to this project. This meeting is being held in part by means of communications media technology and has been publicly noticed. Active participation will be for committee members only. Provisions have been made for any member of the public desiring to have access to view the meeting. The recording will also be available after the meeting has ended. If you are watching online today, please make sure you mute your mic and turn off your camera for the duration of the meeting. Please be advised that the cone of silence is still in effect. All meetings and correspondence must include me. Again, for the record, this meeting is being recorded and has been publicly noticed. At this time, I'll ask each committee member to introduce themselves for the record, beginning with the committee chair.
Absolutely. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Robert Hendrickson. I work in management and budget, but I'm the CDBG-DR program manager.
Good afternoon, Audrey Ziegler, Social Services Department Director and the lead for CDBG-DR housing program.
I'm Rob Parkinson. I'm with the Management and Budget Office over the Criminal Justice and Grants Management Office.
John Muller, Director of Facilities and Real Estate, Hillsborough County.
Brenda Viosia, Managing Director of Affordable Housing. Tim Rogers, Engineer, Water Resources Department.
Tara Williams, Manager of Architectural Services with Capital Programs.
Nicole Gelber, Compliance and Monitoring Manager at Affordable Housing Services.
Thank you. On November 14th, 2025, we received a total of 11 proposals in response to RFP-25-00378. However, 8 of those proposals were deemed unacceptable and will not be scored. The committee will discuss the remaining 3 proposals received in alphabetical order. Each proposal is to be evaluated based only on the information provided in the proposal as it correlates to the requirements and evaluation criteria set forth in the solicitation. The evaluation committee chair, Rob Hendrickson, will lead today's discussion. So with that, Rob, I will turn it over to you to set the stage for our conversation today.
Absolutely. First of all, big thank you to everyone on the call for all your work on your proposals. Thank you for doing that. As I think everyone knows, this program is a big deal. We received a large amount from HUD to do this disaster recovery program. And the housing piece is in excess of 250 million. And we have a lot of people in the community waiting for us to engage. So these services fit right into that model. Without further ado, what I'm going to do is go counterclockwise to ask everyone here to share your general feedback about the proposals, whether that be positives and things you really appreciated seeing, or maybe even areas where you would be interested in seeing more or have questions. My understanding is we do orals after this. Is that correct?
Yes.
So that would be an opportunity for all of the proposers to respond to those comments. So Nicole, I'm going to actually start with you and go around the table and end it back here. That's okay with you guys.
And do you want to do the specific each proposer or just overall?
Yeah, sorry. Yes, let's start with, only because it's the order I have looking in front of my own notes. Let's start with Tucky and then do dynamic and then Lemoyne.
Sure.
Sorry, thanks. Thanks for the clarification.
Happy recovery. I really liked that they split the county into zones, the north, mid, and south. They had very strong compliance and monitoring. They completed 220 HUD CDBG-DR contracts, 0 audit findings. Their subject matter expert was impressive, Chris Stillman, person, but his resume was very impressive. Very well organized. Commitments to locally funded subcontractors and MWBE, that's huge due to the Section 3 compliance that we're going to have to be reporting on during the period. They have a deep bench of Hillsborough-based subcontractors, knowledge of Hillsborough and Florida code, which is huge. Dedicated dashboard for reporting and federal compliance. Their org chart was easy to understand. A best practice that I thought was great was that they had up to 30% reduction in homeowner drop-offs during eligibility verification due to proactive communication and bilingual support. That is one of the reasons why people stop engaging in this program, is sometimes because they just don't have that proactive communication. And our job is to spend money. So I think that will be great that they've come up with things to help reduce that. My one question was that they said that they assume the financial risk for cost overruns. So I would like them to elaborate that because I didn't see that in any other proposal. Those are my big ones.
Thank you.
Andrew?
Yes.
So I thought their proposal was really well put together. Some of my questions rely on the fact that they have people sort of spread out between Texas, New Jersey, St. Pete, Louisiana. I'm just curious how their interfacing works together. If they come together in person, or if some people are always remote, some people are on site all the time, or they're planning to relocate. I'm not sure how that relationship will work. Also, I was wondering if they are partnering with any other GCs. That look like a lot of their staff is in-house, which this may be okay, but I was just curious because they had a list of subcontractors, and I'm not sure if those subcontractors were also licensed GCs. So how that relationship may break down a little further. I thought their workflow diagram was really nice, actually. Really appreciated that. And then that the fact that they pointed out that they had a decision log of what happened during the pre-con and then how that gets transferred to the construction team. It's always nice to have like a little diary of why decisions were made, because inevitably someone will go back and question how that came to be. So I think that's a little nice to have. I'd like to see what that looks like though. They have some examples of other projects maybe. They noted in their proposal also that they had a reduction of change orders, 35%, and the shortened construction times 25%. And I was wondering what that is based off of. Like, what's the metric used for the baseline in order to get that 25-30%? Is that across the whole project or specific individual houses? So if you can elaborate on that a little bit, that would be great. Finally, because I'm an architect, I would love to see the quality of the work that was being done too, like some before and afters of either a complete construction or even a rehab. Because while there was a lot of good information outlining it that we could read about, I'm a visual person, so I would love to see what the end products really were. I think that would be helpful in the grand scheme of things. Those are my big comments.
Great, actually, thank you.
Okay, I also loved that they had the 3 teams split geographically. I thought that was great. Just to show us that they can ramp up for that much work. And that there be some overlap, so that it kind of makes a deep bench, to use a sports metaphor. They had a lead-based paint supervisor, which I think is great, very important. I really liked the summary tables of the executive and project management, and then the superintendents. I thought that was really good to see, and am fully sold on the experience of those individuals. They had some great project examples. I gotta say I was a little confused. There were the projects that they included to demonstrate their experience, and then a series of case studies that looked to me like the same projects. Maybe there's something there that I missed, some extra point to be made, but I found that a bit confusing. So if they'd like to clarify during their oral presentation, I think that'd be helpful. For their approach, I think it was a good approach. I like the discussions on early decisions, regular meetings, early coordination with the EOR, which is very important, and discussing risk. I was a little taken aback, and maybe this is normal, that the GMPs would be completed after 90% design. That seems, that's very different than in utility world. But maybe that is appropriate here, so I'm just a little surprised at that. And the, minimizing change orders, which I appreciate that and understand, but it's kind of the point of CMAR, is get them involved early to minimize those change orders. So they had an extensive list of sub-consultants, which was great. It looks like they've got all the bases covered. But again, I was a little confused because also in the subcontractor list, they included FDOT, City of St. Pete, and Pinellas County. Not entirely sure how those can be subcontractors, but maybe I'm missing the intent of that table. But other than that, I think, there's a lot of good stuff. I said this a bunch of times in the others, there's a lot of boilerplate stuff, but it was good boilerplate stuff.
So I don't have a whole lot to add. Capacity wise, I thought this was very thorough. 2,200 homes completed in terms of rehabilitation or reconstruction, I think is an impressive number. Having their core team available 100% of the time and being dedicated to the project, I think for the purposes of their function is really important. So I was happy to see that. Subcontractors, not really my area, so I don't really have a lot to say about that. But more so on the community engagement, I felt that they had a really strong plan. They understand the necessity of building trust and being in the community and all of that. That also sounded to me like they did that 100% on their own. So if they could clarify that for me, whether or not that's something that they would engage local nonprofits for, or is that something that they would do? It looks to me like they have these mobile field units and that's what they do. But I thought that was a great approach too. I thought overall the zones were, great way to be able to just break up the county. And I thought it was a strong proposal.
Okay, yeah, I'll try to not cover what's been covered, what's unique I have here. So, kudos to them for the RFP compliance crosswalk. That was good. Just gonna throw this out there. These are stuff they can cover at their presentation. I don't know how anybody felt, but I don't know how I felt about an advisory committee being who we go to versus a clear one. I mean, on the one hand, they got a very clear divide us into three. Here's what you deal with. And then when we elevate, not that those three couldn't be involved, but I found they can elaborate on that. Not sure how I felt about that. Subcontractor list here, I saw at least 3 GCs listed in their sub list. When you look to the right, so they're in there to be, just note that. I felt they could elaborate a little bit more on, I think in our RFP, we're requiring different conceptual meetings at different stages. Maybe I missed it, but just something to cover that. I'll just look at, again, when they briefed and talked to me a little bit about who the implementation consultant is versus advisor versus role. Not sure I understood that portion. And just kind of reading in line to what Tara's comments were. All 3 of these you're going to hear this, are good solid proposals, but in the case of Ducky, show us a little bit more on size and scope capacity through examples.
Okay, I thought they had a great RFP compliance crosswalk on pages 5 and 6. It made reading the application so much easier. The applicant reported 0 audit findings. The proposer has dedicated federal compliance and safety officers, which is always appreciated. The proposer also has substantive CDBG-DR experience in Florida, Texas, New York, and North Carolina. I did have some questions in the proposal. They talk about establishing contingency funds for unforeseen and unknown risks. How would that tie to cost overrun issues? I'd like them to explore that a little bit more in their verbal. I noticed that they were using Monday.com for project management, and they're capable of using Canopy, QuickBase, Salesforce, and UI Grants Accelerator. So to me, that denoted that they had some organizational flexibility so they could work with whatever the county wanted to work with. I noted that they had an adequate subcontractor pipeline in the areas of pages 70 through 71. I really did appreciate their community engagement and equitable access practices outlined on page 71. I also was impressed with their door-to-door outreach program in Texas that utilized field inspectors to engage applicants who had withdrawn, and that the practice increased active projects by more than 20%.
So unlike John, I really like the idea of an advisory committee, so maybe a little bit more about how that will be implemented in if there's any time delays or if it's something that expedites work and finance or how that's going to be beneficial, but I think it's a good practice. It did have a lot of the outreach that Rob mentioned, door-to-door campaign. So I think they're committed to working closely with residents, which from my perspective would be a huge benefit. It's not just referring back to the call center or referring back to the other eligibility issues, but more working with the contractor. I have this, I'm sorry, Rob, I have this sorted by section.
We're doing good.
I like their timeline, the 90-day timeline that they provided with the 3 phases. It was pretty well set up to be successful with the way they broke up each 30-day increment. And there's something they wrote about material that I wanted to cover. I wanted to mention.
The DPL director.
They were going to have standardized, repeatable plans so that we could maximize and streamline procurement and shorten construction cycles. And they also mentioned that they utilize material optimization, which I think will be beneficial and very cost effective. That's it.
Few things to add, but starting with I thought it was a clear proposal. I like the traceability matrix up front and then reinforced throughout. That just made it easier for us to track all the items in the RFP versus the proposal elements that were being shared. In addition to what other people have said, I thought the compliance checks on subcontractors was pretty thorough. I like that you mentioned prompt payment. That's pretty important. Our subs get paid promptly if we want them to continue helping us build houses. I also thought it was good that you had researched well enough to know that we have an implementation consultant and an AE firm, so you were aware of and came prepared with knowing our model and how that would affect the fact that you would fit into that model. So overall, strong proposal. I had a few questions. If they're in the proposal and I missed them, my apologies, lots of pages. In looking at capacity and size, some of the firms presented their annual revenue. I don't know that I saw that in your proposal. I'd like to know how many full-time employees you have and how many of those reside in Florida, and then by extension in our region. I don't know if you mentioned or even need to hire, but if you did need to hire, I'd like to learn more about what your hiring needs are to support this program and how you plan to fill those gaps. A couple other points and then we'll move on. Again, if it's in the proposal, my apologies. I'd like clear average completion timeframes for single family rebuilds and repairs and mobile home replacements. And the last item that I'd be interested in learning, I'll be saying this for the other vendors too. I'd like to know if you've ever been on a program where you've been held to penalties for missing deadlines, what those penalties look like and how you handle them and how you met that requirement. Metrics, anything that kind of gives us a sense for being in that type of environment and how you just managed to be successful. That's what I had, but again, thank you for the proposal.
Yeah.
Ready to do the second round with dynamic? That's, well, you ready? You get the honor to go first again.
So my comments are, all monitoring activities are documented in a monthly monitoring, which is always great. They have who perform the monitoring activity, the date, what was investigated, any findings, and these are internal monitoring, so I think that that's a great way to set it up and execute. They had 3 to 4 week look ahead schedules updated weekly and submitted to the county. Forecasting near-term tasks, risks, workforce and material allocations. I thought this was great that they recognized the year-round potential for tropical weather in Florida, as we know that could be, that could hinder construction for several months. Sorry. They had a dedicated warranty coordinator to oversee all post-construction support, and that is huge. We've seen in prior cases with rebuilding homes that there have been issues with how those homes were built, especially in Louisiana. They had a $600 million line of credit. I think that was the highest at all. They're using self-consultants, including one of the agencies that we usually work with, Catholic Charities. I just want to make sure that Catholic Charities has the capacity to do that outreach for this firm if they are chosen. They didn't name their compliance staff, their warranty coordinator, the Section 3, the case management outreach. I'm sure that will be dealt with, but they just didn't name that staff that in the proposal. 2 of the lessons learned from this week's included from prior projects was hiring experienced contractors with ample financial capacity. In the past, they've hired contractors that did not have that strong experience with that financial capacity. So I think that's great that they were able to come up with that and move in a direction that they feel the contractor has the experience. They use Procore construction management software, which I think is pretty standard. Those were my.
Just to make sure it's stated, we're now discussing the proposal by Dynamic.
Okay, so some of my comments, I really like that they included their lessons learned on some of their projects. I'd like to hear more of that, because I think they just highlighted kind of key points, but it'd be nice to see some really specific examples. They gave us a few, and I think that's true for everybody. I had a little bit of questions on, and this again is maybe true for all the proposals. Who's our like day-to-day contact on this? Because there's a ton of people in this proposal. And so I guess I was wondering, like, is there the top 3 people we're going to be talking to? Is it 5 people on a normal basis? Is it just one person who's managing that? Seems like there's probably several. So I'm just curious who those top people are and how that is broken down. Also, the role of their firm as a prime contractor, are they doing any construction like self-performance themselves, or they're just managing other GCs? Curious if I could not tell from the proposal, maybe it's in there, but it seemed like they were just more of the management of all the other GCs and subcontractors. I did like that they pointed out how they run their job sites with digital photographs and plan locations. That they have QR codes on the site so you can scan it with contacts, you can pull up the plan from any location. I would love to see that, how that actually looks. If they could give us some examples of that in their oral presentation. I thought that their project pages were really well laid out with quick facts about the team, so I could kind of go back and forth between the overall case studies and then kind of back to those project examples. They did have before and afters on their project pages, but again, it would be good to get a little more in depth on those. Like if you could highlight a specific location and what the quality of work looks like from before and after. I know that they said they would be doing prototype plans. So again, in their oral presentation, I'd like to see what does prototyping maybe work out to be. Is it a 1, 2, 3 bedroom? How much of it's actually prototype versus what people have to select from? And then lastly, if they could give us a few more examples of their project management interface system. I think they called it out to be something specific, and it'd be nice to see what that looks like for their tracking and monitoring. There was just a small snip in their proposal. They just called it their subcontractor management system. So I don't know if that's a proprietary system. Maybe they can show us a little bit more specifically how that works. That's it.
All right. I really liked that they had dedicated teams for pre-construction and construction. It's a very different activities. I thought that was great. The list of their specific subs looks like it included a lot of the stuff we need, the general contractors, I don't know if we need historical restoration, but I'm glad to see it was in there. CDBG management funding. I was surprised to see the Catholic Charities, but it sounds like we have some experience working with them, so that's good to know. I did like that they had specific case managers called out in the proposal. Here's the biggest thing in the dynamic proposal that gave me pause. And I would love for them to address this in their oral presentation. Maybe if I'm misunderstanding, clear it up. It looks to me like that of the key personnel, they have 4 people currently in the Florida area. And they stated that other key personnel will come to Florida to train new staff. It looks like to ramp up for this project, they have a pretty extensive hiring plan. They're going to need to hire on a lot more people. Which seems like a super smart way to do business. I'm not sure that feels like it presents some risk to us in the county. Will they be able to get the right personnel? So that's something I hope they will address and give me some more information on. I'm also a little confused by a couple of the titles that stuck out to me, executive sponsor and program liaison. Those key roles, what do they do in this project? I guess I really liked that the case managers were called out. I think that's going to be a very important part of the project. The projects listed were great. All 5 projects were recovery projects. Looked like one of the projects presented was specifically a CDBG project. But in their table where they just listed lots of projects, it looks like there were others. One of the projects was in Florida, and the projects had 3 or more of the key personnel on it. I thought that was good. It looks like BHL, which is it's like a local general contractor, is going to be very involved in the project. So I'd like to hear a little bit more about that relationship and how that's going to work. I liked the pre-construction workshops, the coordination workshops. I'm not familiar with the scheduling and estimating software they mentioned. This is the section where they addressed asbestos and lead paint. I think that's very important. And there was a good discussion on managing projects simultaneously. And they did call out Power BI reporting, which I think is great. We really like that over in Water Resources. And that's all I got.
For water resources.
Yeah.
I thought this was a strong proposal as well. Their primary work in Florida seems to be their Rebuild Florida work. And that would align with what we're looking at doing. It just hasn't been for that long, since 2024, so I had a little bit of a concern about that. Where exactly in Florida, how much county exposure to development services, and our permitting process do they really have? And in looking at their proposal, they are engaging with some local companies, Moto Construction, and they say they have 20+ years experience here in Hillsborough County. So maybe that's how they're looking to address it, but I'd like to see them flush that out a little bit. In terms of their leveraging relationships with Catholic charities, I think that's good. I just have, like Nicole said, a little bit of a concern about their capacity. We use Catholic charities, or not use, but we award them funding from a number of different departments within the county. And they do obviously work on their own. So I would just want to see how that would work out. And they are trusted in the community, so it's not a question of the actual outreach partner, but the capacity of that partner. I'm like Audrey, I have everything separated out. Yeah, I think that's all I had in terms of, I felt their compliance information was pretty strong. They have a layered strategy, they have SOPs, they have systemic monitoring, they can deal with folks that are out of compliance relatively quickly. And I think that that's another really important part of these of the scope of this project, and being able to understand at any point in time where a particular project is. And their real-time dashboards do help in understanding that. So I don't just need to achieve.
Okay, so I said it before, I'll say it again, it's, again, 3 very good proposals for building homes, right? What they have to do here and all the things that go with it. I do agree with some of the comments that were made on the experience. I felt like their experience, when they come back, demonstrate a little bit more. I put down a note that said it was definitely diverse, but maybe, and relevant, but maybe not on the scale of one of the other proposers. So similar to a comment I said last time, come back and visually show us demonstrated experience to a higher degree than what was in the proposal. That would be helpful. Like the sub list, pretty clear right up front. I could see who's doing what. Did appreciate the fraud prevention mentioned in there, which I think can happen. Good startup schedule. They definitely listed change orders. At one point in their presentation, though, I thought I saw, or their proposal was change orders listed after punch list. That's a little bit of a, for me. We're not talking about change orders after punch list. We're talking about things that are being finished up in the contract, but then it got addressed later. So you might want to explain what's going on there, and definitely appreciate the deficiency plan as well. So there's some things in there that they're looking ahead to how they head off some issues that can occur that could frustrate homeowners.
Okay, before I get started, I wanted to note that this proposal had some trade secret disclosures, so I did my best to not include any of those issues on here. I felt that the proposer had significant CDBG experience in over 9 states, including Florida. I noted that they appear to have a very robust line of credit and bonding capacity. I also noted that they had 0 accidents or reportable injuries. They assembled a very strong team of local partners and subcontractors that were highlighted around pages 8 through 11. This is another organization that uses Prog contractor management software and Primavera Microsoft Power BI dashboards. And this is one that trains their staff on Neighborly and Canopy as well. I really appreciated the thoughtfulness of their hurricane contingency plans that they listed on page 91. And the fact that they're expecting Florida to have weather, which we all know is a reality.
Will happen out this year.
And again, it donates to me that they're seriously preparing for construction in Florida.
Let's keep the cold coming. Take all water down.
To add to a few things that were said, like Brenda, I'd also like to know a little bit more about the relationship with Catholic Charities and how that will play out with these projects. I noted that there was 0 accidents on work sites, so I think that lends itself to meaning that they're probably working more smarter, not harder, and that their 90-day timeline was realistic like the other proposal. And they are committed to working on outreach, which will be helpful to us. One of the things I like that they put in their proposal was that they will work on warranty resolution within 4 to 5 days. I think that's important for our call center and for people that are receiving services. And then they're also committed to providing bilingual support, which will be very helpful to us as well on job sites.
Okay. Again, strong proposal. I thought that there were a couple things that stood out as unique in a good way. A really excellent list of construction, time-saving construction practices. You know, you guys also knew our model. I agree with John that you mentioned fraud, waste, and abuse. Also happened to point out something that we didn't know existed, which is a phony county website trying to solicit community involvement on our program. We've since learned more about that website, and it is in fact good. Leave it at that. I thought the apprenticeship program was a nice touch. It's not central to what we really need, but I like the concept of it, and may even overlap with some of the programming we can do. Another thing you mentioned that I thought was really great, in addition to reading the Black and Beach report, you had read the after action report from Helene and Milton, which I thought was a good and nice touch, indicating you did some research to understand our situation. So good job on all that. A few things I'm going to repeat and add a few new ones to it. Also with employees, I think 450 full-time employees with 2 people living in our region and 2 moving here. I wanted to make sure that was the case. And are we right to conclude that means we would only have 4 local folks helping us, maybe completely off base? Please clarify. Also would like to know annual revenue, do a comparison along the lines of capacity and capability. I don't know, you may have mentioned it again, my bad if you had. I didn't see any mention of ruling out any adverse audit findings or default terminations. And again, to the point earlier about hiring, what does that really look like? What's the need and you know, what does that mean to our timeline? I'd like to learn more about how you manage your payment terms with your subs. Per my earlier points, this will be repeated for the 3rd vendor as well. Again, average completion timeframes for the different types of work. And experience working in with primes to impose penalties for missed deadlines and how those would be handled. But those are my additional comments. Are we ready to move to Lemoyne? Everyone's going twice. Okay, same drill. Nicole, go ahead.
But this one was just a little harder to follow. I think having the certifications in the front of your proposal probably should be. But I did note that more than 7,000 homes were reconstructed, and having a 0 finding compliance history across flood and FEMA audits is definitely something to be proud of, and it's not easy getting those. So noting that 0 finding compliance across flood and FEMA audits. The subcontract was delivered during Hurricane Irma, Hurricane Michael, and Hurricane Ian. Obviously, Ian being not too long ago. They have experience doing certified payrolls for Davis-Bacon requirements. That's huge for federal compliance. They also have Section 3 and BABA documentation remaining in the same file. So you can go to the file, look at Davis-Bacon, look at Section 3 and BABA if you have to, for whatever reason. I think for county staff, that will be great to have that all in place. They are using self-consultants like Dynamic is I think is the other one. You know, sometimes when you don't have things in house, I think that when you have a lot of moving parts, there always could be you know, lack of cohesiveness, I would say. But if they could just explain how they work with their sub-consultants a little bit, the experience that they have working with them, any issues, best practices during their presentation, I think this would be helpful. They have more than 1 compliance person and 3 subject matter experts. I think that's great.
So it looked like they were partnering with a fair amount of GCs. One, again, I have the same question I had on the other ones, like as a prime, are you self-performing anything or you're just managing those other GCs and subcontractors? And if you're self-performing, like what is that work you're doing? They also noted that they have some engineers on their team, like structural engineers, and since we're hiring professional services too, I was wondering if they brought them on board because in their experience, they felt like that was needed, like a supplementary to the other design team. I'm not sure what the difference would be with that, they're the engineers need to do something versus the engineers that we're already hiring to do the work. So what does the interface look like? Another, again, example, before and afters, I'd like to see just so I can understand the quality of the work that we can do. Then they noted that they had some custom inspection apps that they use. So I'm assuming those are proprietary, so I'd like to see what that entails. I'm assuming there's photos and notes. Is it a floor plan? Is it, how does that work? Is it a scan of the house? So that would be extra information. They noted that their teams receive cultural awareness and trauma-informed training. So I was just curious who on the team is getting that? Are those only specific, like if it's just their PMs or if the whole team is getting that? Just curious what that training. And then they did give some examples, which I really liked, of their project management software. I don't know though if that's their proprietary system. They said that they have an IMS system that they also use Procore and Smartsheets. And so what is interfacing between all those three things? Like, is that overlapping, or are those images that we got, are they from their proprietary system? And then this is a comment maybe for all of them. Oh, the proposers. They are all indicating, time savings and ordering monthly items. I'm curious how that works with these quick turnaround projects. Some of them are like 30 to 45 days. So it's just curious, like what are we procuring early that's really saving us? And then is that 30, 45, 60 days? Is that just their normal standard working hours, or is that just them working like straight overtime and weekends in order to meet those deadlines? So I was just curious if, it's round the clock work, shifts, or they can just do the work that quickly on their standard hours. So again, that might be kind of common to all of them though.
Okay. So I noted that the team partners, it includes a lot of the disciplines we're looking for. What I didn't see was anything with hazardous materials, lead-based paint or asbestos. I do really like how they laid out the team in layers: program leadership, construction management, controls, engineering, and homeowner engagement. So that made it really easy for me to see where people fit in these key roles. And they certainly appear to be qualified people. So the projects is probably where I have the most pause on this. They listed out 4 projects. Of those, 2 were clearly recovery projects, 2 were CDBG. The projects listed the key personnel. Those key personnel were not the key personnel in the proposal. The key personnel in the proposal, though, and I'm going to specifically call out what seemed to be our 3 leaders, Josh Sharp, Tara Will, and Chad Herndon. It looks like they have a lot of experience on their resume in Alabama, Lee County, Texas, North Carolina, the New York Build It Back. So I'm wondering why those projects with those individuals weren't the example projects when they seem a better fit. So there's clearly something you're trying to tell us with the example projects, and I would like to understand it a little bit better. I thought the approach was good. It's the typical stuff, but it's the good stuff that for, efficiency. I liked that they talked about, how to handle high volume and doing multi-sites at once. There's a comment in there. It looks like their average ratio is 8 staffed per one site. I hadn't even considered that, but I think that's very helpful information for us to know, just to kind of get an idea of how they do multiple sites with the people they have available. And then again, but I did notice again, there's no mention of lead-based paint or asbestos, which I think is important. And there's no mention of historical restoration, which I think is maybe less important for this, but I'm willing to be corrected.
So, thank you.
So, I had a little trouble following back and forth on this one as well. The proposal says that they reconstructed 7,000 homes, but when you look through it, Volusia County, which is a Florida county, they completed 300 homes. So we're not really comparing, certainly their ability as a CMAR is the same, but working through our processes within Hillsborough County is something that I don't see. So if they could help clarify that, I think that would be good. Something that stood out for me on this one was their org chart really didn't address homeowner engagement at all. They didn't have anything in the org chart that told me how they case manage, how they do outreach. So when they come back for orals, I'd really like to hear them flush that out. How are they going to engage with the community? What are the cultural and languages sensitivities that they are going to bring to the table? I didn't see anything in their proposal that addressed that. I thought, having 0 audit findings in other states and Florida is a real positive. Meeting the requirements for CDBG is not easy with Section 3 and Davis-Bacon and all those other requirements requiring a lot of subcontractor engagement and training. So I thought that was good. I thought their timestamp photo logs and daily reports really stood out to me because it gave you not only a snapshot, it also gave you a visual. And that really helps in helping homeowners understand sort of what the projects are. Those were the standout things for me.
Yeah, okay, I could definitely see where somebody who hasn't, and some of the team hasn't done construction their whole life, they could have laid this out a little bit better, but they are a pretty solid firm. Just, I'll note that, they could, but if you've read them before, you can kind of see it, but yeah, they definitely could have done that. Brenda, to your point, I had a note here, like 2,000 to 3,000 homes, so I'm a little bit like, how many did you do? But it's relevant experience, good experience, but you can see how you address it. They were strong on addressing change orders, which I think are one of the most pain in the, for any project you're doing, is the change order process. And I did like how their plan to address those and get ahead of that. I agree with Tara's comment. I saw the under 15 days and this and such. So how are you going to do that? It sounds great, but tell me how. Give me some examples. Show me. They did talk about the limited English low literacy up front. Thought that was good. Again, great personnel, relevant experience. I'm a little bit torn, Kim, because I know that nobody can stay, we can't hold somebody contractually to a company and that goes across all 3 of them. We can only go off based on the team they're presenting at the time. But again, and then the last thing I think going to the hard to read is on the one hand, at the end, I see this 9 key subs, but then I'm looking in there and I see another list of subs. I'll go back to the other proposer that laid out the subs, said, here's our subs, here's the list. All or some are going to be used. That's very helpful to us. That's it.
Okay, I thought it was a quality proposal. I felt the proposer had significant CMAR experience across the Gulf state. I did have Me being me, I tried to delineate of those 7,000 units they talked about where each one of them were, and there was some dissonance throughout the proposal. So I'd like to hear a little bit more, how many and where. I did appreciate the proposer's outreach strategies that were highlighted on pages 26 and 27, and they included a recognition of cultural awareness and trauma-informed communication. This was the only proposal that I saw that mentioned the role that trauma will play in serving our citizens. And we're a year, close to a year and a half after the last set of storms. They're going to be frustrated. They're aggravated. Their ire is going to be pointed towards government. So I want to learn more about your trauma-informed approach in serving our citizens. So when you give your verbal, I'd like to hear a little bit more detail about that. The proposal had some nice workflow charts on pages 46 and 47. I thought those were really nice and easy to read and really convey the information well. This is another one that uses Procore Smartsheet. You talk about the proprietary IMS system, but you don't really talk about what it can do for you. So I'd like to hear about what your proprietary system can do. You don't have to go into proprietary details. Just what does it do for you to serve our RFP? And then my final comment is that there was a workflow document. To me, it wasn't clear for the entire 24-month period that we're looking for, required by the RFP. So I'd like to know what your actual workload will be for the next 2 years and ensure that you can take on our workload.
Not to cover what everybody else has covered, strong proposal, 5 decades of experience, large scale in housing, 7,000 housing units completed, et cetera, et cetera. The 2 questions I have for the orals is the cover letter right at the front mentions that they reserve the right to negotiate in good faith. So they could explain that a little bit in detail. And then my second one is to expand on their production matrix a little bit more, to more clarification.
Audrey, thank you. I forgot to mention that. I had that question too, because it was listed in there, but then they listed it as a deviation. We're kind of listing what's stated in the contract as a deviation, so we can handle that at the next meeting.
Yep, that would come up in negotiations.
That's all.
Selected.
You're good? Okay. Again, solid proposal, a lot of experience, appreciated all the information around revenue, et cetera, zero, compliance issues. Repeat my question before to understand number of full-time employees in Florida and in our region. As others have mentioned, the traceability matrix would have helped the proposal, but it didn't stop us from getting through it. I would like a little bit more about what is defined as the qualification process behind sub-vetting. What do you do there? I also like the 8-to-1 staff site ratio, but like to know what that really means. Is that, are those all FTEs? What's behind that ratio, just to understand it a little bit more and what those roles are. I like that you included success factors, that you shared your customer surveys, some good pre-construction service time savers. As with the others, interested in payment terms with your subs, your average completion timeframes for the various types of work, and then working for primes who imposed penalties, and then a couple more comments. You mentioned capacity to do 500 homes per year, presumably new builds, and then later a peak combined delivery capacity reaching 200 to 275 homes per month. That's a little different than the 500 per year. Maybe some clarification and how that fits into your current capacity. And the last one was Volusia was a big job reference, but not anyone from Volusia on your references list. And I wondered why that was, that being a pretty significant client, but no Volusia County reps listed for us to perform our reference checks against. So those are my general comments. I have comments for all 3, but I think that wraps up this portion. Ethan, is that correct?
Yes,
Comments before I just mention a few general things. Okay. I wanted to do a couple of things with everyone. I wanted to let you know where we stand with your references. I'm the one calling all of them, and I know Ethan supplied you with those who had not reached out, so you could call them, encourage them to call me. If you started that, thank you. I have received a couple, but in terms of just pure numbers, I won't name the references. Ducky 204, I've managed to connect with. Dynamic 204, I've managed to connect with to actually complete and get answers to my questions. And then Lemoyne, you had 7 and I managed to connect with 3. So please, if you haven't, reach out to them. These reference checks have been very helpful and it would be in your best interest if you could reach out to them to get in touch with me. A few other things to think about or consider when you come back for orals. One is, this kind of came through some of it, but whether it's you're subbing to GCs or contractors directly, a lot of you provided lists. I'd like to maybe have a slide showing how many of those are local or regional for us, because that drives our local economy and it's an important component to the way we work. I'd also like a little bit more information from everyone as to how you envision working with our implementation lead. In this case, it's BDO and our architectural and engineering firms. It's, several cooks in the kitchen on this one, and I'd be interested to know your thoughts around how you would do it, how we could make that successful from your role standpoint. And the last thing I would say is please bring the people to orals who will be working with us and give them a time to speak so that we get a chance to meet them on some level beyond the actual content that's being discussed. Does anyone in the room have any other pointers for orals that you would like to see uniformly done? Once going twice. Okay, great. Again, thank you for your proposals. All were solid and we can appreciate the work and attention you give to those.
Fantastic. Thanks for having the whole committee. If you're one of those proposers, be monitoring UNA. I'll be reaching out to you in the coming days to provide you with the schedule for presentations, the format, all the information you'll need on that. Anything else, guys?
No, thank you.
Okay, let's go ahead and wrap up. That will conclude the evaluation committee meeting for RFP-25-00378. Construction manager at risk for CDBG/DR single family housing repair and replacement program. Have a great weekend, everyone.